Good morning. Welcome to Inquisition Update. My name's Tom Fress, and I'll be your host for the next hour. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We're going to continue where we left off yesterday in the book The Global Vatican by former Ambassador Francis Rooney. And we're talking about one of the most consequential events in modern times. The Second Vatican Council, where the Roman Catholic Church, during the height of the Cold War, Castro's missiles aimed at the United States, the Great Red Menace, the threat of nuclear annihilation, global nuclear exchange, first strike capabilities, on and on and on, had literally gripped with terror the hearts of American people and the people of the world. The people of the world were ready to negotiate, ready to talk. Little children in the classrooms were having to duck and cover, and little boys drew pictures of intercontinental ballistic missiles bombarding the United States. It was in the hearts of every people. The threat of global nuclear annihilation. The United States alone had enough nuclear power at that time to destroy the whole world several times over. It put the whole world in an apocalyptic state of mind. And at this very time, the Roman Catholic Church, that church of Antichrist, headed by the man of sin, the son of perdition, the Antichrist of the Bible, the little horn of Daniel, was running the council. And representatives from quote-unquote Christian churches all over the world showed up in attendance for Vatican Council II. And the Pope threw out the welcome wagon to every religion, including the Protestants, who for centuries, for a period of at least 605 years through the papacies of 63 consecutive popes, 83 consecutive popes, burned God's people, tortured God's people, eviscerated God's people, starved them, confiscated their property, stole their children, raised them up Catholic. Persecution of the saints, unbridled persecution, biblical style persecution. And here this Pope appears to throw out the welcome wagon to other faiths, including Protestants. And what probably most prepared the hearts of Protestants to participate in this Second Vatican Council was that for nearly 200 years they had believed and taught futurism. Now, I've talked about that much throughout the reading of this book because it is the key. Had it not been for the destruction of the original belief of the Protestant reformers that the papacy is, was, and always will be the Antichrist of the Bible. The papacy and only the papacy, and no one else could but the papacy fulfill all the Bible prophecies regarding the man of sin. Had it not been for the destruction of that belief and the replacing it with futurism, the idea that Antichrist doesn't come until the end of time, this Vatican Council would never have been possible. At least not for Protestants. But futurism had taken its toll. It had exonerated the papacy. All of a sudden, the papacy is no longer the Antichrist, the little horn, the son of perdition of the Bible. He's a Christian, just like the rest of us. And more than that, he's the leader of the Christian world. And he has a huge following all over the world, as was demonstrated at Vatican Council II. So much following that during Vatican Council II, the leaders of the world, the governors of the world, the presidents, the dictators, the kings, the queens, had to look in awe at Vatican Council II and say, that man, the Pope, is a power to be reckoned with in the world. Now we'll continue where we left off yesterday in the book. We're reading the first full paragraph on page 120. He says, for the moment, the aggiornamento was best observed in the faces of bishops who sat on either side of the nave. And we're talking about St. Peter's Basilica. On either side of the nave sat all the representatives of the Catholic churches throughout the world and other faiths, as we'll discuss. And it looked like an eclectic mix of every race, every religion, every people, every tongue, every continent, it was a global attendance, okay, demonstrating the power and influence of the papacy. He says the Catholic Church was much larger and more expansive than it had been in 1869, the First Vatican Council, when 700 bishops traveled to Rome, most of them from Europe. More than 3 times that number came for this new council, Vatican Council II. Some 2,300 bishops from 55 countries on 6 continents. Among these were 240 from the United States, 250 from Africa, another 250 from Asia, and 600 from Latin America. The most notable contingent, though, was a small group from the Soviet bloc. A few came to Rome from Hungary and Yugoslavia. About 24 came from Poland. This group was led by Cardinal Wyszynski, the Polish primate who spent 3 years in Polish prison for his opposition to the communist regime, and included an up-and-coming young prelate named Karol Wojtyła, the future John Paul II. An even younger future leader and pope, Father Joseph Ratzinger, attended the council as a peritus, or theological consultant, to Cardinal Fringes of Cologne. As we will see in later pages, the presence of these Iron Curtain prelates, who had lived for years deprived of liberty and freedom, that is, liberty and freedom to be Catholic, would deliver crucial support to efforts by Americans, notably John Courtney Murray, who to move the church toward greater acceptance of religious liberty for all faiths. Religious liberty for all faiths. That's ecumenism. A global religion. All you have to do is accept all faiths, all religions, and claim to represent the rights and liberties and freedoms of all. That's the global religion. It's ecumenism on steroids. And the only one not invited to that party, you might well know if you're a regular reader of your Bible, is Jesus Christ, the only name under heaven given among men whereby you must be saved. Now also to Rome came a delegate from the Russian Orthodox clergy who would sit in on the council as observers. Their arrival was a personal triumph for Pope John XXIII, since one of his goals for the council was to bridge the 900-year schism between the Roman Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox churches. Remember, the Eastern Orthodox churches were those that came up under the rule of Constantine after he had left Rome and moved into Constantinople. The restrainer, the one who was literally restraining the rise of the Roman papacy. When the restrainer left Rome and set up shop in Constantinople, the Eastern Orthodox churches arose, and he was literally their first pope. And that left a power vacuum in Rome, where the papacy, the Antichrist, the little horn of the Bible, stood up. That's where he was first recognized, in Rome. That's the papacy. Same papacy we have today. All right, in 1054 AD, these Eastern Orthodox separated from the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church, or the Roman papacy, tried to assert his universal authority over the Eastern churches and expected them to pay Peter's pants, expected them to believe his doctrines, to obey his laws, and the Eastern Orthodox refused. And there was a great discussion, a great feud came up over iconography, that is, image and idol worship. And so that was the essence of the split between the Eastern and the Western Church, as it's called. All right, Rome, ever since 1054 AD, has either tried to destroy the Eastern Church or to gobble it back into the Roman Church. Vatican Council II was a huge effort to gobble up the Eastern churches and put them back under Roman authority. Now, continuing, it says, the same spirit of ecumenism prompted the Pope to invite a number of Protestant clergy to join the Catholic bishops in St. Peter's. All right, similar to the split between the Eastern and Western Catholic Church, there was a split out of the Roman Catholic Church of those who called themselves Protestants, those who read the Bible for themselves, understood the prophecies, and concluded unequivocally and unanimously that there was no other candidate for Antichrist in the world. There was no other candidate. No one else fulfilled the prophecies of Antichrist. It had to be the papacy. The Pope finally, was the last straw on the camel's back, was when the Pope began to sell indulgences. That is, the forgiveness of sins for financial gifts to the Roman Catholic Church. They were trying to build St. Peter's Basilica, and it was costing tremendous amounts of money, as one might imagine if you've ever seen it. And so the priests went about selling the forgiveness of sins for money, even sins that one had not yet committed. If you wanted to murder your wife and you didn't want to burn in hell from it, why, you could just pay the preacher, pay the priest, and he would write you an indulgence. Blanket forgiveness of sins for so many days, weeks, months, or years, or a lifetime if you gave enough money to the church. It was a fundraiser. In Roman Catholicism, you confess your sins to a priest, and he makes you do some penance of some sort. And after completion, or on the condition that you complete your penance, which might also be a financial gift to the church, then he'll forgive your sins. Well, it just became mass-produced. It was like a production line. This system of confession to a priest and absolution from a priest, they just put it on a production-type scale, and the priest literally became salesman for the church, selling you the guarantee of forgiveness of sins for so much money. And that was enough to wake up the eyes of some of the monks in the Roman Catholic Church, some of those who were protesters before Protestantism wasn't cool, and they literally pinpointed, identified, isolated the Pope as the Antichrist of the Bible, and you can't argue that point with a Protestant. Protestants won't negotiate on that issue. The papacy is the Antichrist, and there's no one else ever to fulfill that role. Now, there could be many antichrists in the world, but there's only one, the Antichrist. and the papacy's it. And they split off the Roman Catholic Church. And they began to teach, contrary to Roman Catholic canon law, they began to teach salvation by grace, salvation by faith, salvation by Jesus Christ, salvation by the Bible, by the Scriptures. And it was a gift of God, not of the priests, not of the Roman Catholic Church. And they were absolutely right. And so the papacy has either, throughout its history, either tried to destroy the Protestants physically or spiritually through futurism and other lies that they've taught in the pulpits of our churches, or to just gobble us all back into the Roman Catholic Church. Again, if you believe in a future Antichrist, you've exonerated the papacy and you have no more business, you have no more basis for your protest. So, necessity dictates that you must return to the Roman Catholic Church. And that's what Vatican Council II was all about. It was an answer to futurism. It was a follow-on to futurism. If you believe in a future Antichrist, a single individual, then you certainly can't believe the papacy is the Antichrist. You certainly can't stand behind the Protestant Reformation and all the damage that it did to the papacy. No, you have to make reparations to the Pope now. You have to pay back all that was taken from the Pope. The land, the money, the people, the air, land, and sea. The power, the spiritual power, the temporal power, everything that was lost at the Protestant Reformation must be restored. Okay, and all the better to restore that if you're absorbed back into the Roman Catholic Church under papal authority, whether you directly answer to the Pope or whether you indirectly answer to the Pope by obedience to the laws of your land, the civil laws of your land, and then fight his wars to help regain that power, regain all the wealth that he lost at the Protestant Reformation. That describes all of modern history. That describes all of modern history. You wonder why there's so many wars in the world. We're simply undoing what was done at the Protestant Reformation. And we're doing it with our own tax money, we're doing it with our own blood, and we're doing it with our own guts, at our spiritual peril. Vatican Council II was a follow-on to futurism. Vatican Council II could not have happened. Ecumenism could not have happened, at least not from Protestant point of view, had they maintained their Protestant belief and rejected futurism. Okay, I beat that horse to death, but it's going to be glue by the time I'm done with this book, because I'm not going to quit talking about it. It's key. You have to understand the damage that was done to the body of Christ through futurism. And if a man is going to make his heart right with the Lord and confess his sins, how can one confess if you don't know it's a sin to confess? The most grievous sin of Protestantism today is futurism. And if we expect God's help, we must repent. We are in error. We must return to Christ and reject and protest Antichrist and warn the rest of the Christian world. This new world order is simply the old world order restored. And it's going to be visibly similar, but on a much grander scale, a much more sophisticated scale, a much more technologically advanced scale. And the prospects of this new world order are truly frightening. Now, there are many who would have you believe that it's the Islamic menace that's the true evil, the worst of all evils to be feared in a nation. It's Romanism. When it comes to killing in the name of religion, Rome puts the Muslims to shame. And the only reason you don't know it is that they put away all the history books that describe the history of Rome's brutality. They put them all away for a purpose. Look, if the world's beginning to be taught futurism and starting to believe futurism, you certainly don't need any books out there describing the papacy as the Antichrist and proving it beyond any shadow of doubt. Those books had to be destroyed or taken off the library or put in the attic somewhere. And those are the books that I like to read here on Inquisition Update. They restore a Protestant understanding. They herald the warning of the papacy's control of the nations of the earth. The Antichrist of the Bible controls the nations of the earth. And nowhere more so than in the United States of America, both foreign and domestic policy. And that's what this book confirms. All right. That's what Vatican Council II is. Now it says, also to Rome came a delegation of Russian Orthodox clergy. They were part of the Eastern Church, a separated Constantinople, were persecuted by Rome and fled to Russia under the protection of the czars in Russia. Okay, the Russian Orthodox clergy who would sit in on the council as observers. Their arrival was a personal triumph for Pope John the 23rd, since one of his goals for the council was to bridge the 900-year schism between the Roman Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox churches. That same spirit of ecumenism prompted the Pope to invite a number of Protestant clergy to join the Catholic bishops in St. Peter's. The broad array of bishops and observers was proof that the Catholic Church was more Catholic, that is with a small c, and more global than ever. Now, what does Catholic with a small c mean? Universal. Welcoming all religions. What characterized the Roman Catholic Church in its early history was the gobbling up of the Gnostics, the heathen, the barbarians. They brought them into the church. Numbers is what counted. Influence, political influence is what counted to the early Roman Catholic Church, because state and church had been united. And it was not to maintain the gospel, the pristine gospel of the Bible. It was to, bring in the heretics and then form a religion that would satisfy the masses. And it still goes on today. Vatican Council II was the modern example of what the Roman Catholic Church did in the very beginning. It's a global religion. And it is contrary to Christ, diabolically contrary to Christ. That's why it's a church of Antichrist. Now, Pope John's appeal to quote-unquote separated brethren, as the Pope referred to the other Christian denominations. Now, let me stop right here. The other Christian denominations, embedded in that is the assumption that the Roman Catholic Church is the Christian church, and the other denominations, or those that broke away, are called separated brethren. Those who carry their Bible under their arms, read it regularly, memorize it, put it in their hearts, and try to live by it and preach the gospel as we're commanded to do, you're called separated brethren by this mother church called Roman. And it's time to bring you separated brethren back in, because you've been prepared for your reunion with your holy mother church in Rome. That's what Vatican Council II was all about. Pope John's appeal to quote-unquote separated brethren, that is Protestants, as the Pope referred to other Christian denominations, carried important implications in the context of the Cold War. Interesting. We'll be back right after these messages. Inquisition Update on First Amendment Radio.
I pledge allegiance to the King of Kings, and to his kingdom come, on earth as it is in heaven, one holy nation, under our Heavenly Father, grace, mercy, justice for all.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, welcome back from the break. You're listening to the second half hour of Inquisition Update. If you'd like to keep Inquisition Update on the air, please support First Amendment Radio, who sponsors the program. And if you'd like to contact me directly, please do so by email. My email address is tom@seawaves.us. Now, what were these important implications that the other Christian denominations, the Protestants, carried in the context of the Cold War? Remember, Rome, through her Jesuit-trained stooges, Lenin, Trotsky, Stalin, and yes, Khrushchev, had created this red menace that was even in the hearts of Westerners was an even greater threat than the papacy was to the Protestants. Nuclear annihilation. I mean, that was the bottom line. Global nuclear annihilation. It was all created by the Jesuits for the purpose of uniting all the Christians together, to create a global need for religious, political, and social and economic unity. A global government to end all wars, to end the destruction of the earth. Now, if you believe all this malarkey, it makes sense that there ought to be a Vatican Council too. But it's all contrived. It all has a religious purpose. That is to get the world to turn against Christ and to unite with this man of sin. This man, this flesh and blood man, the head of all the pedophile priests in the world, should be the leader of the world, the spiritual, temporal, and economic and social leader of the world. That all the civil laws of the world should be written commensurate with Roman Catholic canon law. And you all be made Catholic no matter what your denomination is, what your religious profession is. That's Rome's solution. That's the New World Order. It's not new at all. It's always been the goal of the papacy. But what's the special and important implication of the Cold War carried by the Protestants? Because they rebelled against the papacy. They were the ones that put the papacy on the ropes. They were the first lethal threat ever launched against the papacy, the very existence of the papacy. Had the whole world believed what the Protestant reformers believed and taught, well, the papacy would have been ignored in the world. There would never have been formal or secret relations with the papacy among any of the nations of the world. But Satan is not so easily defeated. The truth is not so easily understood by those who have no interest, no spiritual inkling for the truth. So, the papacy goes on, calls together this ecumenical council, and the Protestants are well, one of the most prized possessions now of the papacy. The protest is over. There's no longer any hindrance between Vatican control of the American government, because the Roman Catholic Church and the Protestant churches together form a political juggernaut that cannot be opposed. Whether they're Democratic or Republican, they serve this New World Order, whether they know it or not. The Protestants had this idea that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Rome threw up an even graver threat than the papacy seemed to be in their minds. And so they flooded to find fellowship with Roman Catholics in a common war against communism. It worked. It's still working. We have another boogeyman, Islamofascism, radical Islam, further driving the Protestants in unity with the Roman Catholic Church, further growing and empowering the quote-unquote Christian control of Washington, D.C. and foreign and domestic policy, when it's not Christianity at all. Vatican Council II is the crowning glory of the papacy here to the present time. It says the church had negotiated with Soviet bloc countries to arrange for Eastern bishops, Catholic and Orthodox alike, to visit Rome. If negotiating with communists seemed to go against the spirit of Pope Pius XI's Divini Redemptoris, it was very much in keeping with the new spirit of Vatican Council II. This was effectively the start of Ostpolitik, the policy of greater papal engagement with communist countries. Ostpolitik did not imply that the Pope now approved of communism, says the author. On the contrary, as John the 23rd made clear when he excommunicated Fidel Castro at the start of the year, the Church still adamantly opposed communist ideology. I got to ask you a question. If the papacy truly objects to communist ideology, then why is the government of the United States, which is completely under the control of Roman Catholic teaching, why is it becoming more and more communist? Why are we more and more and more dependent on the government for everything. Why are we made poorer and poorer and poorer because of the taxes we must pay to support this socialist system? The papacy is communist and fascist and democratic, and it's global, and it's in your face. That's why I say it doesn't help if you're a Democrat. It doesn't help if you're a Republican. You're just swinging the pendulum back and forth. They are both papal agendas. The New World Order cannot be achieved unless there is a dynamic to necessitate change, and that is an apparent conflict between Democratic and Republican politics, left and right, left and right. Grandfather clock, tick, 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 tick. So the Pope's not opposed to communist ideology, certainly not opposed to fascist ideology, as we discovered during the Second World War, and Hitler's complete control by the Vatican and the Jesuit priests that run it. All right. But Pope John also believed that his obligation to tend to Catholics in the Soviet bloc required him to treat or to deal with the leaders of those countries. Ostpolitik followed naturally from a long tradition in Holy See diplomacy of making the best of a bad situation. More broadly, it put the Pope in a position to work for peace. Here he is, the man of war, the one who foments all the war, sits back detached from the war while his kings conduct the wars, and then preaches peace. And the whole world buys it. More broadly, it put the Pope in a position to work for peace, which was exactly what the world needed in the fall of 1962, and I will add, at the height of the Cold War. Cuban Missile Crisis. The threat of nuclear annihilation. You see how Protestants, Christians alike all over the world are so terrorized by this boogeyman created by Rome? Even willing to get in bed with the whore of Rome. That's what it did. He says, in moving toward dialogue and broader engagement with the communist world, Pope John XXIII shifted the Holy See's diplomacy away from the rigid, unbending opposition to communism of Pope Pius XII. Years later, as we'll see, the pendulum would swing. There's another reference to the pendulum. It's the clock, the grandfather clock, the left-right Hegelian dialectic that powers the need for change in the world, closer and closer and closer to a global government under the headship of the Pope. Without the wars, without the pendulum swinging, it doesn't happen. And all the world is occupying itself by swinging that pendulum left and right. If you would just stop swinging the pendulum and start pointing to the man at the top, the man in the head of the clock, the grandfather of the world, the papacy, then you would rush to stop that pendulum from swinging, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? If you want to get back to Christ, you got to stop swinging the pendulum. If you want to stop the New World Order, you got to stop the pendulum from swinging. Stop talking about liberal and conservative politics and start talking about the man that rules the world. And how he differs from Christ. That's what it's all about. Stop all this political talk. You're just fueling the fire. You're just putting more gas in the locomotive that pulls the papal train down the line. Oh, but it's such a great show, these politicians and all their promises. All their money and power and influence. All they have to do is flatter you and you'll vote for them. All they have to do is be good looking and moneyed and you'll vote for them. And they keep swinging the clock, swinging the pendulum of the clock. Remember, the Roman Catholic Church was first fascist during the Second World War. Now it's communist during Vatican Council II. There's the swinging the pendulum. The advancement of the papal New World Order depends upon it. Politics as it is in the world is the engine that drives the New World Order. Every vote cast in this country is just one more spit of gas into the carburetor of the man of sin. It's his system, lock, stock, and barrel. Okay? There was some Protestantism in the colonial period, but not anymore. So quit feeding the clock. Quit pushing the pendulum. He said, in moving dialogue toward a broader engagement with the communist world, Pope John the 23rd shifted the Holy See's diplomacy away from the rigid, unbending opposition to communism of Pope Pius XII, the right-winger. And it says, years later, as we'll see, the pendulum would swing the other way. The left is in control now. As Pope John Paul II moved the Ostpolitik of Pope John the 23rd and Paul VI to assert a policy of confrontation with the communist-led states. John Paul II swung the pendulum the other direction. We've just reviewed 3 separate swings of the pendulum. It's all politics. It is driven by politics, left and right. And Rome writes the agenda for both the left and the right. How are we going to advance the papal clock? Well, the pendulum has been swinging to the right for a long time. It's kind of running out of gas. We better get ready to push it to the left. And after that has happened for a while, and it begins to lose momentum, we better find a way to prepare to swing it to the right. Makes real sense, doesn't it? I mean, it's kindergarten. It's just that easy to see once somebody opens it up to your eyes. The papacy is primarily a political institution that seeks global domination. Global control. And now you know how the system works. Don't ever be fooled again by some slick Willie. They're all in on it, either knowingly or unknowingly. It's the system they live in. To be good at it, they must do what they're told. They don't need to know what this is all about. They just need to do their jobs. And that's how the system works. It's auto-controlled. It's on autopilot. And you can stop the autopilot. You can stop the autopilot and change the discussion from left and right-wing politics to who is the Antichrist? Who is the one that foments the wars? Who is the one that taxes and spends us and fights and wars us into oblivion? And for what purpose? If everybody would wake up to this, we could defeat this New World Order. But we have to give up our left-wing influence and our right-wing influence and start looking at the man behind the curtain of politics. All right, the day after the Second Vatican Council II opened, October 12, 1962, the Pope gave a speech in the Sistine Chapel in which he linked the Council's aspirations to peace in a nuclear age. There's the man of sin, preaching peace. What does the Bible say? Peace, peace, when there is no peace. By peace he shall destroy many. He shall destroy wonderfully. Isn't it wonderful how the papacy destroys? And all the while called by the world a peacemaker. You bought the lie. The Protestants were right. Futurism is wrong. Futurism is straight from the pit to destroy the body of Christ. If it were possible, he would deceive even the very elect. That's not going to be a simple deception. It's going to be a very carefully cloaked deception. And where best to cloak an antichrist deception? Right in the churches. If Satan wanted to defeat God's people, where do you think he would wage his war? Right out of the mouth of your pastor. The one you most believe and trust. And he did it through futurism. Now the Pope, you can just imagine this. Has any of you ever seen Michelangelo's painting of the Last Judgment? It's a hideous thing. It shows the several layers of hell. You know, the bottom, the hell of from purgatory at the top all the way down to more gross and more evil and wicked destruction and torment. It's a hideous painting. But the papacy commissioned its manufacture by Michelangelo, and so here the Pope is pointing to Michelangelo's Last Judgment and admonishing that the heads of states must ultimately, quote, render an account to God, unquote, and be, quote, ready to make the sacrifices that are necessary to save the world's peace. Now, who do you think the Pope is talking about when he tells the kings of the earth that they must render an account to God? The Pope. And the Pope, the God of this world, is telling the kings of the earth, the President of the United States among them, make ready the sacrifices that are necessary to save the world's peace. This is a call for papal control of international relations. Papacy's control of the foreign relations of every nation. And make ready sacrifices, indulgences. You willing? You want peace? You willing to pay for it? You got to sacrifice. You got to pay to the church. You got to pay to the Pope to have that peace. It's a global issuance of indulgence. That's what it is. Indulgences on steroids. Indulgences on a global scale. You want peace? Hear the voice of God in Rome. Be ready to make the sacrifices that are necessary to save the world's peace. And that's the same message that the first Jesuit Pope of all history, Francis I, is going to make this month in the joint session of Congress. Be ready to make the sacrifices that's necessary to save the world from starvation, to save the world from nuclear annihilation, to save the world from ecological disaster, to save the world from the extinction of the human race. You're going to have to live with a lot less. You're going to have to conserve energy. You're going to have to pay taxes on the carbon that you expend from the consumption of energy. You're going to have to do whatever the Pope says, because the Pope is God on earth, and he says that the God of the creation was completely inept and didn't provide us an earth that could sustain a world full of people. He's going to make in everything this Pope says, he's going to make a mockery of the God of gods, because he is anti-God. He is anti-Christ. The Protestant reformers were right. Will you comprehend what this Pope says when he comes to Congress this fall? Or will you see just a pretty smiling face and bright shining eyes and a meek, mild manner? All the better to deceive you with. My grandma, what big teeth you have. The better to eat you with, my little darling. You better look at that Pope, Pope Francis I, in the context of Bible history, Bible prophecy and history, or he's going to charm the pants right off of you. And at the same time, he's going to scare you to death with a phony boogeyman, just like red communism, and he's going to make you do everything but bark at the moon. And if he can't make you do it, he will make your government do it. And you must obey the civil power. You don't have a choice. You can argue about the Pope all you want. But when the cops come to the door, when the FBI comes to the door, when Homeland Security comes to the door, you're going to do what they tell you to do. Or you're going to go to jail. Or you're going to be shot in your own front yard. You're going to be hauled away as a terrorist. A domestic threat. A threat to national and homeland security. You're going to be labeled you're going to be labeled a psychotic. Someone who's lost his faculties. Because the whole world just can't understand a biblical mind and an obedient heart. They don't know Christ. They don't want to know Christ. They just want to do what they're told. Because if they don't do what they're told, they're going to get fired. They're going to be humiliated. They're going to lose their loss of income. They're going to lose their insurance. They're going to lose their benefits, their retirement. They won't get as much in return in their Social Security if they get fired. They're losing all their security if they lose their job. They're going to do their business even if they disagree with it. And if that business is to come and haul you off away in a paddy wagon, put you in a concentration camp or a re-education center, however they want to cloak it, that's where you're going to go. The Pope's got a political mandate in this country. They set the agenda politically in this country, domestically. And if they mark you as a heretic, that's what you are. Because that's the way everybody's going to treat you, or they're going to be treated the same way as you are. That's the way it was in the Old World Order, in the Inquisition, when they sent out word that we want Tom Frass. We're looking for Tom Frass. We want to talk to his mother, and if she doesn't give him up, we're going to treat her just like we're going to treat him, as a heretic. Stretch him on the rack. Burn him at the stake. And your own mother will rat you out. Those are the days to which we are returning in this new world order. The state becomes everything, and the state is everything because the Pope depends on it. Oh, are you comprehending this? Email me, please, at tom@seawaves.us. Let me know that you comprehend what we're talking about. I'll see you tomorrow.